Okay, finally, I'd like to introduce Megan Ramey and Jonathan Graca. As you'll hear, they are bike fanatics. There's a few of those here in town. Megan runs a bike tourism business called Bikeabout and has a long history of bike advocacy, and Jonathan cut his bike advocacy teeth in Hood River working on the safe routes to schools. So please welcome our next speakers.
Can they see? Okay, yes, I'm Megan Ramey, and I'm a transportation nerd here to seduce everybody into what could be an amazing biking and walking, both for the Westside and for Hood River as a whole. So who am I? Since I'm brand new to town, I am the founder of Bikeabout, which is writing travel guides for North America's best biking cities, and I chose to move to Hood River, Oregon specifically because it is the #1 bike tourism state in America. Before I moved here, I lived in Boston for 8 years where I was a board member for Livable Streets Alliance. We advocated for first-class transportation for everybody, gender, race, income, age, and as of August, I moved here and we promptly sold 2 of our very heavy bikes and got electric bikes. This is one of them. We call it the Batmobile, and it gets my 7-year-old daughter around and sometimes my husband, and sometimes we reverse. But it fits a lot of kids and or adults in it. Local project you'll know me for. I was super excited about this because I was driving by and almost ran out of the car, but I designed the trailhead sign for that's right next to the public restroom very recently. And the Mosier sign's gonna go up soon too. So just quick agenda. What I'm gonna go over is in terms of the Westside plan, what did you guys say you wanted? I'm gonna show you what the vision is for that, and then tell you how you can get engaged. And so what did you guys want? I did this survey, I can't remember when it was done, but November. I definitely remember doing it. For transportation, the #1 thing you guys wanted was a bike network. #2 was a greenway network or a system of trails, and #3 was a sidewalk network. So what does that look like? So on the right side, that's in Hood River. That's my daughter and I walking everywhere. What? Oh, I'm sorry, on the left. I'm sorry. In the middle is a bike network that's in Madison, Wisconsin, my birth city. And then on the right, you can't see it, but that is a greenway in Vancouver, British Columbia. And so quantitatively, what do you want? So on the left side, you have walkscore.com, which hopefully everybody should walkscore their own address. This is 1003 Montello Avenue and 84, which is very, very good in terms of American standards. And then on the right, you have a bike network analysis, which is soon to be released by the People for Bikes. I just went to the conference last month in Madison, and so you see these are the 6 top towns in America. They're all small and medium-sized or small cities. So we can get there. And so what does a sidewalk network look like? Well, we don't need to spend too much time on this because we have a great sidewalk network downtown. I would like to see a little bit more ADA accessibility and ramps, but all we have to do is replicate what's going on downtown. When you combine a sidewalk and a bike network, you have Neighborways, which are calmed residential streets where the car is guest, and that's very key to note. Kids can play in the streets, and they don't have to worry about getting hit by a car. So this is in Vancouver. They dead-ended a street, as you see behind her, and so bikes can go through, but cars can't, and then there's a great sidewalk, which you can't see. This is in Salt Lake City, which we just visited. It's the McClellan Neighborway, and they did a very interesting thing that's relevant to Hood River because they used their series of alleyways that we have here to make a like a neighborway through a residential street and connect it through, so people still have access to their driveways through these alleyways, but it's not a through street. Only bikes and people walking can go through. And it's on Easter, that's why my daughter has rabbit ears. This is a neighborway in Roslindale, Massachusetts, so it was a community engagement. They painted the intersection, and that slows cars down. And so what do good bike networks look like? A lot of these are going to be bigger cities, I apologize, but they've been doing great things over the past 5 years. So this is in Chicago. This is a protected bikeway on Dearborn Avenue. This is Minneapolis, a protected bikeway on a bridge. Vancouver, which is one of my favorite protected bikeways because cars are going 40, 50 miles an hour next to them, and you don't feel it because you have a protection between you. And then this is locally, what does a greenway look like? So we have the Indian Creek Trail and the Westside Trail. I would advocate for better surface treatment so my cargo bike doesn't slide in the gravel. It needs to be good for transportation as well as recreation. So I would love to see gravel and or some sort of hard surface treatment on these greenways. Boulder did a genius thing. They got funding for stormwater mitigation and flooding to be able to put in 75 underpasses that serve as biking and walking, so you never have to cross a busy intersection. Greenville, South Carolina installed the Swamp Rabbit Trail right downtown with this amazing centerpiece of a bridge. It has changed tourism for that city. Not that we need it. The Midtown Greenway is a bike superhighway in Minneapolis. And then I added on this vision of trails. What do trails look like? Because we're about to have an amazing trail, like world-renowned trail, come through this city that I don't think anybody's really ready for. The historic Columbia River Highway is just going to bring lots of people, and so we have to be ready for who's coming, and I would love to see it accommodate families and people ages 8 to 80. So what they did is, even through small towns like McKeesport, Pennsylvania, they provided separation from cars, even though that's not the actual trail. We passed these two very gentlemanly men friends that were dressed so awesome on the Great Allegheny Passage Trail. So I'm hoping this is who we get. And this is us leaving one of the big tunnels out of the Great Allegheny Passage Trail. So what are the barriers to doing this? Hills are huge. I way underestimated the hills before I moved here. I was here for 3 hours before we moved here. I was like, we don't need to sell our bikes. We're fine. We sold our bikes within a month or 2 months of living here. So electric bikes have a huge role to play in making it more accessible to everybody. And then designing the bike network so it meets ADA standards, and so there's not these crazy, you're not forced to go up, nobody bikes up 7th Street, but you're not forced to go up a crazy hill. And then small town, people as a perceived barrier. There's way less bureaucracy here. Cities like Boston and Chicago and New York, the politics are nuts trying to get some of this stuff done. Infrastructure funding, you just have to look long-term and be opportunistic. And then safety barriers, we want to make sure we're designing for 8 to 80. And then how can you get engaged? So we're gonna, Jonathan and I are going to coordinate a series of biking audits to actually look at what the plan calls for now and how it can be better. And then also there's gonna be an online survey that we're gonna figure out how to either map-based or just text-based. So I really, really hope that everybody's as excited about this opportunity as I am. And we'll leave questions for after Jonathan speaks.
All right. So Megan's presentation was a great introduction to, I think, get people excited about what some of the opportunities could be. Some exciting pictures of other cities. We're going to bring it back to Hood River, small town here. And I'm going to go over kind of just public involvement and how some of you can potentially get involved in shaping our transportation or our bike ped plan. So people here definitely said that they want bikes, have said that. The Westside survey, Megan went over this, but people, yeah, she went over that, so I'll just skip through this. In the Westside plan, or this is the bike route in the Westside plan, bike and ped, and there's 3 different colors, and then there's straight lines and dashed lines in this. And so you can't really see the colors right here, but basically the dashed lines are proposed routes, and the straight lines are the existing routes. And then there's, some of them are, yeah, we can't see with the colors, but some of them are pedestrian, some of them are bike, and then some of them, like number 6 there, is a bike boulevard, which is kind of the larger swath of road. There's only, in the plan, I think it's 110 pages, 2 pages are focused on the bike ped plan, that map, and then this is the table that goes along with it that describes each of the proposed routes. And so there's 18 proposed, that's on the right, and 7 or 8 existing. This is just my first kind of take on looking at this map, a couple of kind of benefits and things that I think need some work in the plan. As has been mentioned on the bottom there, site previously studied for community park. That's the only big park that's in this whole West Side plan. There's no other big park space. That's one of the drawbacks. And there's also in that upper left-hand corner, I'm seeing there's a few areas where that yellow circle is, they're not connected from one point to the other, and I think this city with our trails has some disconnection issues, and I want to make sure, I'd like to see that those connections that in this plan, that they're made. But there's also some really cool things in the plan. In the top center, there's 2 north-south routes, number 3 and number 4. One of them is along Henderson Creek that are being proposed. And then on the right side, going to the Hood River Middle School, there's some bike boulevards. Those 2 kind of north-south, east-west purple lines there. And again, those are just some first initial thoughts. So as far as people getting involved, some of the goals that I think that Megan and I discussed that we'd like to see is encouraging a bike and pedestrian plan that works for ages 8 to 80, not just fit people that want to go out and get exercise, but all ages, more or less, and obviously safe. But I think what I think is really important is making sure that the trails are connected to stuff that matters, making it utilitarian so that we can get to school, that we can get to parks, so that your kids can get to soccer practice. That kind of utilitarian value of trails that I think is going to be super, super important going forward, and I think that's what people want. And one of the issues that I've always noticed is it's really hard to get up and down the hill, like Megan said. We all know that. There's not only the hill, there's also the west wind. It's painful. So I think the e-bikes is really, I have my own thoughts of those with mountain biking, but with trails and biking around town, I think they could be a really huge asset in making getting around this town for people, not just the super fit that are into biking into a west wind and up a hill. It can make it possible, and I think the prices will be coming down as well. So what we are proposing is doing audits, and we're still working on what that might look like. But the basic outline is that we're thinking about having 2 or 3 group audits where people meet for an hour and a half on maybe a Wednesday night. We meet in the evening and we look at the plan and we break into a couple groups, and groups walk. One group decides to walk the east-west routes, and one group decides to walk the north and south routes, or maybe we bike them. We'll have to see who comes. But we then, along the way, we'd be taking photos and kind of documenting our experiences on those routes. And once those are done, we go through these audits, and we also offer opportunities for individuals to do them on their own, get all this data back, compile it, and give it to the city council. And I think with this, I didn't put it on the slide, but I think this really is an opportunity to be thinking boldly. These are some lines drawn on a map by a consultant, and they're based on our old transportation plan from 2011, and they've added new lines on there. But I think what I think these audits can be is really an opportunity to think bigger and bolder, and what do we want to see. And this is a great opportunity for citizens to put that out there. So final thoughts, we've got sign-up sheets if people want to just be on an email list that we can contact them once we get the plan together. And I just want to leave you with just the idea that I think this whole community involvement thing works. I got involved 10 years ago with bike ped issues, and myself and Todd LaFay and who else was on that? Arthur was eventually on it. Lynn Frost, I don't know if she's here, but we worked with the city to apply for a Safe Routes to School grant. We ended up getting $300,000. It was just some citizens kind of saying, hey, there's this opportunity. Today there's the Todd LaFay bike route on May Street that was constructed, so it can happen. Thanks.